Thanks, Brett.
Some of you across the state getting hit with snow this morning. Here in central Illinois, it's just windy, overcast, and cold. We'll see what happens. It's first day of spring as well here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Join us each and every weekday morning here as we bring you updates of what's going on at the Illinois State House. They're back at it today. Both the House and Senate are in session, so I've got to bolt out of here and head over there to cover what's going on. They could be talking about increasing your gas taxes locally, or at least allowing for local governments to increase your gas taxes. So we may talk about that tomorrow. Also, you've got a judiciary committee that could tackle other issues concerning criminal justice or even possibly firearms owners. So we'll obviously be watching for that today as well. But yesterday, we previewed this, and we'll actually do a long segment on it here coming up about the Homeschool Act and some of the debate inside the House committee hearing that happened while there were hundreds of homeschool parents out in the hallways. And I'll share with you a couple of interviews I did with several homeschool mothers. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. Also, yesterday, we had a Republican actually advance a bill out of a gun violence prevention committee. State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer got that bill we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where he's trying to require that school officials who hear of a threat have to actually report that threat instantly instead of waiting till the next morning or something. So we'll hear a little bit about that as well. Lots of action at the State House. It's tough to cover it all, but we do what we can. And you can find more and get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. You can also get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus, and you can find it there. But obviously, wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily on YouTube with The Center Square.
And, you know, regardless of what the government or this committee does, the public education system that you've escaped has been a failure, and we know that you're going to do the right thing for your kids in the long run. And we thank you so much for making your voice heard here.
That's
State
Representative Blaine Wilhauer yesterday in the Illinois House Education Committee, where they talked about State Representative Tara Costa Howard's measure to regulate homeschoolers. Welcome back. It's Illinois in Focus Daily, and we talked about this yesterday. And if you missed it, you can watch the entire hearing 2+ hours long. Go to thecentersquare.com where you can get all the headlines. Sign up for the newsletter. You can see there a lot of activity from yesterday. Just some of the things, of course, we talked about. Despite the flood of opposition, that Homeschool Act from Tara Costa Howard advanced out of committee. So you can go read the story. You can actually also find the entire committee hearing on our YouTube page here at the Center Square. So go check that out if you want to delve deep into all of the policy back and forth. But what we'll do here is we'll just kind of, hear some of the debate. Not all of it. Obviously, we don't have the 2+ hours because I got to get back to the Capitol to cover what's going on. But you did have some interesting back and forth with various opponents. Again, historic amount of opponents filed. And it's very similar to what we saw with the state's ban on semi-automatic firearms. When that bill was going through the State House, there were tens of thousands of people who signed up to oppose the measure, and maybe 1,000 or 2,000 that supported the measure. So it was grossly the opposition was outweighing the support, and that was the same thing here for the Homeschool Act. The opposition was 40,000+ who filed in opposition, while about 1,000 filed in support. They also showed up. Homeschool families were there on the scene and even providing testimony. This is a former Chicago teacher turned homeschooler sharing her thoughts on how homeschool parents in the Black community want that autonomy.
Black families like my own are choosing to homeschool in larger and larger numbers each year. The public schools are failing our children, and homeschool represents a much better alternative. In 2024, only 31% of Illinois public high school students met or exceeded proficiency in English language arts, and only 26% in math. Homeschoolers, in contrast, consistently outperform public school students on standardized tests. Black homeschool children, in particular, score as much as 42 percentile points above their public school counterparts. This bill will intimidate and discourage parents from choosing this much better option for their children.
So what does the bill do? The bill does a variety of things. It requires homeschool parents to fill out a form and send it in to the local school district and the State Board of Education. State Board of Education supports this and says that they want to make sure they know about all the kids, and they have records of their academic progress, and that the homeschool administrator, who is likely a parent, has a certain level of degree and knowledge, and there's been various concerns that this is just getting the camel's nose under the tent. And if you've never heard that phraseology, it essentially means that it's a slippery slope. There is another phraseology for you. It's just one more step to get to even more control by just incrementalism, so to speak. That's the concern here that a lot of the homeschool parents had. Here's some more back and forth from yesterday's committee hearing with State Representative Blaine Wilhauer and several other proponents and opponents.
Because they're trying to get away from this kind of stuff. They don't want to be tied to that. This is going to require them to be tied to that. And if it's not requiring it today, Representative, it's just one small vote away from doing it. So I don't think that I would just shake my head like this is something that we shouldn't be concerned about. The 44,000 people out here shouldn't be concerned about.
Representative, as ISB has stated, as current law, there are specific subjects that are required to be taught. We don't dictate the curriculum. The freedom and flexibility and creativity, shall we say, is there for homeschoolers as long as they're teaching the subjects. The goal is to make sure that we have kids who are getting an education in those subjects.
So Tara Costa Howard, again, the sponsor of that there, discussing what she says is the importance to make sure that kids, and she even shouted that she's the voice of the voiceless, and she pointed back to a couple of the proponents that were sitting behind her and said she's speaking for them. And then you had Republicans say, well, they're speaking for the 40,000+ people who signed up in opposition to it and came to the State House to stand outside the State House committee room. I talked with one in particular, Charity Cunningham. She was literally right outside the door in the hallway, and she shared with me some of her thoughts.
What brings you here today? Homeschool rights are important in Illinois, and we are fighting to keep them free and reduce regulation on homeschooling.
What about this particular bill do you think is offensive?
The whole thing, but it's not just a form to be filled out for registration. We wouldn't need 45 pages and a 15-page amendment to do that. There are the ambiguous language within the bill opens up the door for future legislation that will just completely change homeschooling in Illinois, private schooling in Illinois, and that's just a tragedy that cannot happen.
What do you say to those who, the sentiment is you guys are doing this all without any kind of oversight?
That's completely false. There's a 10-page document on ibse.net that describes the homeschool policy as it stands in Illinois. There are provisions in there for abuse, for educational neglect, for policies and procedures of withdrawing your kids from public education. there are policies in place in Illinois. It is not a free-for-all. It is not unregulated. So we do not need more regulation. They are concerned with educational neglect, which is happening in the public school system. My boys were not getting the education they deserved in public school. Abuse is happening rampantly in the public school system. A teacher in my district was just arrested on Sunday for abusing a child. So the problem is not homeschooling, and the problem is not private schooling.
And talk about, do you have reservations about like the curriculum that Illinois and public
Absolutely. The curriculum is absolutely a big issue because they want to come in and regulate our homeschooling curriculum, the private school curriculum. And if we wanted to follow their curriculum, most of us would just have our kids in public school. My boys were not being challenged appropriately. Their needs were not being met. So I don't want someone approving my curriculum who couldn't even meet their needs while they were their own student.
So again, that was Charity Cunningham, a homeschool mother that I talked with yesterday at the Capitol outside the committee room. And then that was while the committee was still going on, dipping back into the committee. You had a Democrat state lawmaker talk about just a horrific story of a young kid who ended up dead, and the parents were like concealing the death or something to that effect. Here's just a little bit of that back and forth.
A coroner would later find that he had died from an accidental shot fired from a gun that the children found in the house. His mother then hid the body and later confided to her friend, Lauderica Wilson, that she did it because she did not want to risk losing her other children. She told her friend, nobody knows. He's not in school. He's homeschooled. I've got this figured out. Wilson recalled in an interview with a reporter about a conference she had with Staples a few months after the child had died. She still said she had too much to lose. Wilson, who now lives in Florida, said it was one of several calls she had with Staples over the course of months as she tried to figure out what happened and just what to do about it. Police records indicate that in July, in response to a call from Wilson, they visited the home. Staples denied the child even existed. Later, when police executed a search warrant, officers found Zion's body in a metal trash can in the garage.
I mean, absolutely just horrifying, right? Graphic description, and he raised this during a hearing about homeschool regulations because of these horrible parents doing horrible things. That was a justification of sorts. Tara Costa Howard said that that's, a horrible story, and it's that type of thing they're hoping to address with the Homeschool Act. But one of the opponents got up at the table there and just shot that whole idea down that the Homeschool Act wouldn't help this at all.
Death of Zion Staples was horrific. I take seriously the words of Jesus in the New Testament that it would have been better for a millstone to have been put around that person's neck than for him to die. But this bill would not have protected Zion Staples. So how do we protect other vulnerable children? It's through DCFS. DCFS dropped the ball on that, and a child died as a result. So how do we provide more support to them, not putting more of a burden on them, as HB 2827 would do with DCFS, but give them more of the resources? They're underfunded. They're overworked. You talk to caseworkers, the burnout, the trauma that they go through. That's what we should be looking at.
So the debate around children's safety, is the Homeschool Act the answer, or is it to get DCFS to do better? I will note that recent reports from an investigative outfit, Illinois Answers, part of the Better Government Association, they said that the DCFS is just not properly reporting child deaths, and it's been a years-long problem. And there's all kinds of concerns about youth in care of the state and how they're treated, and just pretty horrific stories out of there as well. But the last little bit from the hearing, State Representative Adam Niemerg got into a back and forth with an official from the Illinois State Board of Education who is very much in support of the Homeschool Act, saying that they just need to know where all the kids are.
All students in the state of Illinois deserve an education.
They're not the government's kids. There are these parents in this room that are standing up for their, religious freedoms, parental rights. They're their kids and they're their students. And to insinuate, that we don't care about a child that was victim of a horrible crime is an insult to the 47,000 witness slips, an insult to the moms that are looking at me right now in this room.
So
and everybody.
Nieberg went on to talk about the historic number of people who filed opposition slips against this bill. Regardless, the bill passed out of committee, but State Representative Amy Ellick, who is very much part of the major conversations opposing this as the minority spokesperson for that House Education Committee, she said that it did pass committee, but there's still big hurdles for this thing to get anywhere, especially with some Democrats already coming out in opposition. I mean, for instance, we heard from LaShawn Ford, who said that he's heard nothing but bad things from constituents about this bill, so he's not going to support it. So what's the prospect of this thing actually advancing or possibly not getting enough Democrat support to get simple majorities to get it over the finish line?
I would like to just see the bill die. I would absolutely like to see the Democrats in the House tell Tara Costa Howard, this is not a good idea for us and we don't want to be on it. Let it go.
Do you think there are enough Democrats to keep it from getting that simple majority before May 31st?
I certainly hope so, and that'll be the question, and that's why families need to keep contacting their legislators and don't give up now.
Where do we go from here? Well, there is another hearing. It looks like it could come back up this afternoon. Not sure if it's actually going to be, a discussion or an amendment, because Tara Costa Howard did say expect an amendment to come back. It's bill deadline week, so a lot of stuff flying out of committees, that being one of them. Then obviously they'll, do a few weeks of getting stuff ready to have floor debates, and we'll be tracking this very closely. But that's just the House. All right, some civics lessons. A lot of homeschoolers were at the State House giving civics lessons, I'm sure. But this is just the first step. It's got to pass the full House before it goes to the Senate. And then the Senate, it's got to go through committee. And then the full Senate before it can actually get to the governor. So it could be a long slog here. But this is obviously one of the major issues of this legislative term. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us each and every weekday morning here with Illinois in Focus Daily. A Republican state legislator, start that over. Live to tape, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it's done right here. All right, let's do it. Hit the button. We'll do it live. An Illinois state representative in a gun violence prevention task force getting a bill approved, and he's a Republican saying it's not about gun control. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. I know a lot of you guys tune in to see what the latest is with the Second Amendment issues in Illinois, and we're doing what we can to keep you posted. A lot of things happening. Obviously, there's lawsuits still pending. I've been checking the status of those. Not much activity. We did have some filings in the Schoenthal case. That Schoenthal case is about the public transit concealed carry ban. That's still pending. You've got other cases about the gun ban still pending in the appeals court. You also have in state courts whether or not individuals can sue gun manufacturers, and even out of state or out of country. So there's a lot going on, but there's also a lot being discussed about legislation impacting firearms. Well, Republican State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer yesterday got one of his bills that's associated with firearms, more in the gun violence space, but interesting bill that did advance. And let's go ahead and get into it. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Short segment here is we got to get back to the Capitol because they are back in session. But got the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. It's a new committee to the State House. State Representative Maura Hirschauer chairs that. And they had this bill where you've got the idea of immediate reporting that school officials have to do if they hear of a threat. Let's go ahead and hear what State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer had to say yesterday during this committee to advance his bill and get it onto the House floor eventually. Dan, go.
This is a bill, HB 1316 is the bill that we discussed a couple weeks ago. And basically an event in my district, kid made a threat that he was going to hurt somebody with a gun. I don't know the exact phrasing of the threat, but a firearm threat was involved. The kid told the librarian. The librarian waited a little while to notify higher ups, and the parent was never notified. Neither parents were notified that the threat had happened. And so I think that in order, as a law-abiding gun owner, I look at this and I say, we have to do everything possible to keep gun violence from happening. And so this is a very simple common sense bill that says that if a threat is made, the teacher or staff that is notified must immediately notify the principal, and contact must be made with both sides, both guardians of both children, the one that made the threat as well as the individual who the threat was made on. And this is to ensure that the child does not have access to a firearm to do this, and it has to be immediate. I would like to, I'm going to file an amendment to take law enforcement out, and I told the school groups that I'll continue to work with them to see if there's any issues between now and filing an amendment. But to my knowledge, right now we're good to go. But they're gonna look through it again and make sure. So we'll have an agreed bill by the time I bring an amendment back. And I'm happy to take any questions. I know there's a lot of opposition filed, but I believe those are just individuals that assume that every bill coming through this committee was anti-gun, and that is not the case on this bill. So.
And there were several witness slips filed in opposition. It was like 100 plus or so to Davidsmeyer's bill. But as he said, some school districts have some issues with this, and law enforcement raised some concerns because originally the bill has law enforcement included as who needs to be notified. But should they be getting involved, or is this just more like a mandatory notification of the school officials? Is it or is it not an anti-gun bill? I guess I'll let the live chat answer that question. But regardless, a Republican getting a bill out of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force. Here's a little bit more from the very brief Gun Violence Prevention Committee yesterday.
Thank you.
That's right. We're going to prove them wrong with this bill, for sure. To reiterate, I think the important part of this bill is that you're updating the statute for clarity. So as the statute reads right now, it directs staff to make a report to administration if they see a gun on campus. But we know that, we need to broaden that and clarify that for our teachers. So if they're hearing of a threat or if they know of something happening, we want that to be reported.
So that was the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force from yesterday, and not sure when they meet next. They don't meet today. But we do have a House Judiciary Committee hearing this afternoon that could touch on flamethrowers. Daniel Didich's bill. You want to get a flamethrower, you'd have to get a FOID card. A bunch of other measures here in the Criminal Judiciary Committee. Something else that could impact FOID cards. Another C.D. Davidsmeyer bill about the expiration date. I think we looked at that one as well. However, you got to think the Firearm Violence Prevention Committee, they've got several other bills in there that impact fingerprinting for FOID cards, safe storage, mental health exams for certain firearms owners, different types of, pediatricians asking kids about, do they have guns in your home and are they locked up? Still a lot of conversations to be had in this space, and we'll do what we can to keep you posted. All right, so wake up with us. Each and every weekday morning, it's Illinois in Focus Daily with the Center Square on YouTube. Get the podcast where you get podcasts, and also get the headlines in your inbox by going to thecentersquare.com. Click newsletter, sign up, it's free. All right. And you can also make a donation to the Center Square. Keep us going as we bring you the latest in what's happening at the State House. Today, got to get back there. All right. So like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and wake up with us tomorrow morning. All right, that's all I got for you. There might be some conversation today about increasing local gasoline taxes. So the Illinois Municipal League was pushing for that. So we'll have to try to get to the bottom of it and also continue to track the Judiciary Committee to see what pops out of there. A few other things as well at the State House as it's bill deadline week. A lot of activity, a buzz. But we're just starting up in spring session. Right? We're going to be doing this until like May 31st. That's the deadline. Who knows how this is all going to play out. All right. Have yourself a wonderful Thursday. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm sure that there's going to be tons of talk about Trump wanting to end the Department of Education. So maybe we'll get more reaction to all of that for tomorrow as well. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Have a great day. I'm Greg Bishop. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air.
So